Hello there, we're now down to the last few days before the pre-patch goes live with what is some of the biggest non-combat systematic changes we've seen since the game has released. I do have a few last minute tips and explainers for the pre-patch towards the end of this video, so do stay around for that. But this is a weekly news video, so let's get started with the news. You'd think by now that there'd not be much news from the beta, as the developers would be in full lockdown as they focus on polishing bug fixes. But no, we're actually getting some pretty major nerfs to tank defensives that are likely to have implications for the rest of the game. To prepare the ground for what was a fairly large set of ability tuning tweaks, Blizzard released a lengthy explanation of their philosophy towards tanks. As this is a news video, I'll be sticking to just a high level summary of that. Basically, Blizzard are wrestling with a bit of an issue where healers often feel a little bit unnecessary, especially in higher level dungeons, and that is until everybody suddenly takes more damage than the healer can possibly cope with and everybody accepts the tank keel's over. Blizzard's summary explained that they want tanks to take more damage overall and therefore be a bit more reliant on healers, but with that damage intake being a lot smoother and less spiky than it has been in Dragonflight. Blizzard also went on to say that they don't want to create a situation where tanks need to end up kiting all the time. While these sound like perfectly fine goals, the tanking community's reaction to both the details of the summary and the specific changes that they launched was universally negative, with a widespread view that we're likely to see a repeat of Shadowlands Season 1, which definitely did turn into a tank kiting meta. As a tank main who hates kiting, like I think most tanks do, I very much share the concern. Shadowlands Season 1 was the last season that I pretty much opted out of for Mythic Plus, and taken in isolation, these changes are very concerning. However, Blizzard did say in their update that one of their goals was to create a bit more space for tuning encounters, and for me, it's the encounter tuning that's going to be key. How fragile we feel as tanks is not just a function of our abilities, but also a function of the incoming damage. The issues in Shadowlands Season 1 were not just tank fragility, but excessive melee damage from enemies. Currently testing in beta, these changes don't really feel super impactful, but there are significant differences between the dungeons which greatly exceed the impact of the tank nerfs, and this is making it quite hard to be sure where things will actually land. What this all means for me is that it's far too early to panic. But I do think that the next couple of weeks will be a nervous time for tanks, as we wait to see how the tuning pans out. Most of the other big changes that Blizzard have made have, in part due to their willingness to take feedback on board from the community, turned out very well. So I'm personally leaning towards the more optimistic view that things will still end up landing in an okay place. I do remember back at the start of Dragonflight that quite often I would see my entire dungeon group just bleed out and die while I was at full health but facing a boss that would take forever to grind down by myself, and that really wasn't fun, so some level of tuning in this area I think was actually needed. It's just a shame that Blizzard didn't utilise Season 4 to test these ideas out and refine them then, as it reinforces to me how much they wasted the opportunities that Season 4 could have offered them to explore ways to meaningfully improve the game the way that testing old dungeons back in Shadowlands Season 4 did. On the subject of tuning, and we did see the first signs of this also this week, with Blizzard announcing a hefty nerf to Fortified, whose damage increase is dropping from plus 30% to only plus 20. While most DPS and higher level players of all roles do tend to prefer Fortified over Tyrannical, as a mainstream tank, I've always found Fortified to be the tougher challenge, as the amount of damage from ad packs has a massive influence on pool size and speed through dungeons at mainstream levels, and a nerf like this will certainly help to make those tank nerfs a bit more palatable. There have also been a small number of nerfs to boss damage in a couple of dungeons. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning and that there's more to follow. There's a couple of the new dungeons that are significant outliers difficulty wise, so I do think it's quite likely that we will see more dungeon tuning before Season 1 starts. Also on the subject of affixes, and Wowhead has data mined a buff to the new Voidbound affix, with the extra adds that spawn now buffing their allies by 10% instead of 5%. Which will likely increase the need for DPS to hard switch fast to the ads. They also data mined a possible new affix called Oblivion, There isn't really any info about what that could be, or if it's planned to replace one of the current proposed affixes, or will it perhaps become a third affix in the rotation. Now personally, I'm hoping for a replacement to Ascended. But what about all of you? Are you hoping for more affixes or less? Let me know in the comments down below. Moving away for PvE content for just a moment, and Blizzard have also announced this week that the PvP Deserter debuff that is applied in Solo Shuffle or the new Battleground Blitz mode will now apply account-wide rather than just on a per-character basis. This basically means that deserters will not have the option to avoid the debuff just by switching to an alt. This seems a pretty fair change to me, especially given that the Warband changes will likely make alt maintenance a lot easier for players. Moving over now to the live game, and there has been one surprise this week. If you've been keeping up to date with the special Season 4 raid currency Antique Bronze Bullion, you may be wondering why your weekly Bullion has been very slow to drop this week. Well, you're not alone, and it appears that this week the seasonal cap did not increase, leaving those of us who are up to date stuck at 12 billion. As Blizzard didn't internally respond to reports of the issue, I personally was starting to suspect that this was an intended limit. But thankfully Blizzard have now posted an update confirming that it is a bug. Unfortunately, they won't be able to resolve the bug until the weekly reset, but next week the cap will increase by 2, allowing us to catch up, and will then continue to go up by 1 per week right the way through until the launch of the new expansion. Now personally, I've got all the main items I wanted with Bullion, so this wasn't a massive issue for me. But I had been looking forward to getting a few bits of transmog for the vendor, so it's still good to know that we have not hit some kind of hard cap. With the imminent release of the pre-patch, and Blizzard shared a short update of what's likely to be going away this coming week and what we can expect to carry over into the pre-patch. The official Season 4 will end at 10 PM server time the night before your regional reset, so that's 10 PM PDT on July the 22nd for North America, and 10 PM CEST on the 23rd for Europe. This is the deadline for inclusion in the Mythic Plus leaderboard and the 0.1% Draconic Hero title. And for PvP, it's also the deadline for Season 4 rankings, the Draconic Gladiator and Draconic Legend titles, and also the Draconic Gladiator Drake mount and the Elite Gear PvP and weapon sets will be going away at that point. What will not be going away at this point is the PvP Vicious Dream Talon, nor the Raid Dragon skins. Blizzard didn't mention the fate of the Mythic Plus Keystone Master mount, the Infinite Armoredin, or the Mystic Dungeon portals, but based on past experience, I do expect those to also remain available. One thing that is staying, but maybe a little bit more challenging to get, are the Raid Dragon skins from Razageth and Farak. With the launch of the pre-patch, Blizzard have confirmed that the weekly Awakened rotation is ending, and all raids will become Awakened, removing the option to do them in Season 3 difficulty for 2 weeks out of the 3. This likely means that from next week we will be able to choose which of the 3 weekly quests we can do, and hopefully the reputation buffs will also now apply to all factions. But let's move on to what to expect from the pre-patch. The expansion pre-patch is where we're getting the main system changes for the expansion, but without any of the extra content. This means that you can expect the new Warbands feature, the ability to skyride in virtually all of your flying mounts, and a hefty nerf to 1 to 70 leveling. We'll also be getting a couple of short quest lines to introduce us to the Warband bank and to help set up the pre-patch event. What we will not be getting this coming week are the hero talents. They do not unlock until the main expansion, nor will we be getting the pre-patch event itself. This doesn't go live until the following week. I'll be releasing a video guide to the new event in a couple of days, so do make sure to subscribe if you want to catch up on what to expect from the event. There will also be a link to a playlist with all my new expansion previews at the end of this video. When you log in for the first time after the reset this coming week, Blizzard have warned that your account will go through a one-time only conversion process to get your warbands all set up. According to Blizzard's update, this process could take up to 20 minutes. Now, it's not clear if they mean that we might face a 20-minute loading screen, or if it's more like a scenario where we can still load in quickly, but our achievements and stuff could take a bit of a time to get sorted out. Now, one thing I do know is that this process is fully account-wide. There's no need to log into your other characters. Once the process is done in one of your characters, it will be done for all of them. Blizzard did say that there could also be login queues, which makes me think that it is more likely to be a really long loading screen. With that in mind, my advice is that if you can, to try logging in earlier in the day when the game is usually quieter. Or if you do have to wait till later, to consider logging in before you go off to make your evening meal rather than after. And if you're a GM or a raid leader with a raid night, to seriously consider postponing it by half an hour or so to give your folks a bit more time to get logged in and ready to go. Thankfully, this is a one-time only delay. Future logins should be as speedy, that is if you can ever call a WoW login speedy, as ever. Now, one last thing that I also want to cover that has been causing a bit of confusion within the community is a common question I'm seeing about adding characters to a warband. Now, the warband process is completely automatic and every character on your account becomes part of it. There is no opt-in or opt-out process that you can go through. The 4 slots that you see in the login screen are purely cosmetic. The clue's in the name at the top. They call them favourites. This only controls what 4 appear on the login screen, but every other character you have is also still part of your warband. Now, one other change you might notice is that the character select screen now includes all of your characters from every realm, so don't be surprised if the list is a lot longer than you're used to when you start up the game next Tuesday or Wednesday. I do have a full video guide to warbands, which I will link on screen just now if you want to catch up on all the details. Anyways, that's all from me this week. I want to give a huge thanks to everyone who comments on or likes my videos, and especially those of you who have already subscribed or who watched right through to the end. All of this helps to encourage YouTube to make my channel more visible to other users, which helps my channel to grow. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do consider hitting that button. It is by far the best way to support a channel like mine. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.